Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host and its founder, Michael Rebello. I am a 20-year-old entrepreneur who chose entrepreneurship over the traditional college path, inspired and driven by my goal to retire my mother and help other middle Americans just like her learn about and invest in multifamily real estate and other asset classes similar. This past February, she was actually able to step away from her W-2 job and work full time with me and our company, Everforward Capital Partners, to keep spreading the mission. And, we always like to bring, experts on the podcast. What is real estate? What do we do anyway? It just sounds so big, but it really isn't. Actually, when you look at it from a 30,000 foot level, it's just Main Street Americans like us. And I brought an expert onto the show. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Thank you so much for joining. And how are you?
Thank you, Michael. Hey, I love to be here. Fantastic. I'm excited to be on your podcast.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure of meeting Mike virtually for the first time a few months ago on a sponsorship roundtable call with one of the coaching programs I'm a part of. And I'm like, I really like this guy. And I start looking him up. I'm like, okay, he's in the West, he's in California. And then all of a sudden, boom, we meet in person at Marson Rhodes event, the M1 Capital Mastermind in February. And then we meet again at Big Partnership. I'm like, all right, it's divine intervention. We have to have him on the show. So anyway, Mike, I don't want to steal your thunder. I mean, the floor is yours right now. How did you get into real estate and how did this become your expertise? What sparked that? What sparked you
Uh,
getting to multifamily?
Absolutely. Yeah, so real estate has been in my blood all of my life. I've always had rentals of one type or another, mostly in the single family space and doing single family flips as well as just owning rentals. I'm based in California, so the multifamily is not a huge deal in California. I mean, it is a huge deal, obviously, but it's also huge money. And my background has been in the promotional marketing and advertising field. I've been doing that for many years, but real estate was always kind of my side hustle throughout, right? All of my years. And quite frankly, at the end of the day, the real estate is what's grown my wealth way more than anything else because of the equity that builds and what you build from it. I got into the multifamily space just around 2018, um, and attending some of these courses and kind of learning about syndication, learning about raising capital, learning about the process, and even just the idea of owning out of state, right? Because for California, right, everything is so far away. But I bought my first building in Las Vegas. I bought it on my own. It's just a small building that kind of is my test pilot. I wanted to kind of feel the pain myself, so to speak, before I went out and raised capital with others and just see how it was working on a property out of state. And I even did some self management to learn, just to learn the ins and outs of it. The property did very well. But I was quickly invited onto another property of another team that was acquiring quite a bit in Texas, and was more into a larger 60 unit property in College Station. I put in a little of my own money. I raised a little capital. Didn't raise a whole lot on my first deal because I was just still fairly new to that. Um, but then quickly got invited into another, and then I got into my own deal with another partner in Fort Worth, and then another one, and I was invited into a 426 unit property in Kansas City, and so where I raised, I brought in my first $1 million investor into that property, and so it just really spiraled into really just a great thing. It happens pretty fast. And I'm a general partner on a little over 2,000 units. I'm actively involved in most all of the properties in one way or another. Some I'm the some I'm the asset manager, some I'm a key principal, sometimes I'm just a general partner or a co-GP. A lot of different asset classes from student housing to um, the well, actually multiple student housing process properties to the C class and the B class and even A class. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome. And, there's something that you talked about there is that, you didn't just dive headfirst blindly. You got your first little small property. and you decide to do some active management with it and learn the ropes before you truly decide to go into the business. And that's really important because for me, I can't speak on this much, but I acknowledge the fact where, you start small and you build up from there. Because if you just dive headfirst into a massive deal and you have no idea what you're doing, it's kind of like, ugh, like what do I do? Like, how do I raise capital? How do I manage this property management, construction crews? I mean, bids, everything else, lease up, evictions, delinquency, all of that. It's like, what do I do? But if you, like you said, learn the ropes on a smaller property, you can scale from there. And I think that's very important. But I kind of want to dive into your first property. I want to hear that story. Like, what were the best parts? What were the worst parts? I'm sure there was quite a few headaches, especially starting out first. But tell me about that experience. What was it like to own a property, but also manage it firsthand? Like, how much did you learn from that just from being so hands on?
Oh yeah, it was an incredible experience. I'm so glad I did it. And I just, just going back to your point on, I'm a true believer in that, Howard Hughes mentality where, he wanted to purchase an airlines, back in the day, right? And
Yep.
rather than just going out and buying an airlines, he took a job at another airlines loading bags into the airplane, right? And he was actually a bag checker, but he got in there and just really learned, the ins and outs before he went in and dived in and took his money and other people's money to go buy this thing, right? So that's exactly how you have to do it. I'm a true entrepreneur from way back. I've been in multiple businesses, and that is the philosophy that I have for it. But so I was really glad that I did it. It was a great experience. I mean, just everything from, the buying it, the taking it over. As I said, I did self-management, so I'm running the advertising for it. I'm doing the leases, trying to get, contractors from a distance to do, whatever, everything from AC, fixing AC units to cleaning the apartments to painting to plumbing to, whatever, and managing that. Even filing the evictions, which is not something I, love to do. I've never done that actually before, but first couple I did myself, where I literally I flew down, I did there, showed up to court, the whole thing, and then I learned how to do it virtually. You can do it all virtually these days. But fortunately, that only happened a couple of times in that property. But again, just learning the process and how to do it legally, and what you're facing, and it teaches you to be a better manager and bringing in better tenants, to qualify them, and any of the damage to units and things like that. So it's been a great experience. Yeah,
It's funny that you bring that up too, like, leasing and marketing and everything, like, bringing better tenants. It's that experience too that, when you start to get into the big multifamilies, the 100, 200, 300 units, where you know how to talk to the management team now because you've been through it. You know exactly how to do it. So if they're like, well,
exactly.
we could try this, and you're like, mm, I know better than that.
Yeah.
Where you understand it, you've learned the ropes because you learned it firsthand, and not only that, you're very literate in that language. So if the property management company has an idea and you know full well that it's not going to do well, and you're like, well, what if we try this? So it also helps with your team building skills and also your leadership too, to go, well, from my experience, this is what I've done. Here's what you've done. Let's find that common ground. And it could actually bring in a lot of profit. And it's just from, being hands on and, a lot of headaches and probably a lot of sleepless nights. But all of that translates into better management later down the line. And speaking of later down the line, your first big multifamily, I don't know how big it was, but I'm sure for you that was probably a natural process because you were scaling, and not only that, you were learning it. You took the hands-on route. But your first multifamily, what was the most challenging part of it? Was it raising capital? Was it finding the deal? Was it making the team? Basically the deal in general. What was the most challenging bit of that big multifamily that you got?
Well, so the first multifamily that I got into was a 60 unit that I came in just as a co-GP, and I raised capital for that. But I got involved in it, and that was very much, a great process for me. Then, but that property particularly was already in contract and everything by the time I came involved. but it was great learning experience just being involved in that, and then being on all the asset management calls, and just getting it all the way to closing, operations management, and all of that. But then I quickly got invited into another property from the very beginning. There was an 88 unit property down in Houston, and I've been very involved, still involved with that property as well. Matter of fact, I've taken over asset management of that, and pretty much running that. Then there was, of course, there's a 426 unit property in Kansas City, which is a three property portfolio in Independence, Missouri. I'm not real active with that. I tried to be, but the team there is boots on the ground. They're in Kansas City, and they didn't really allow for a whole lot of that. But still keep my finger on the pulse for sure. They've actually two of the three buildings we've exited out of already, and so there's just one left. And then my own building that I got into with one other partner was in Fort Worth. That was a 60 unit, and obviously there from the start all the way from the underwriting through to the sale, which we did sell that also in just last year in Fort Worth. But amazing experiences, every single one of them. They're all different. The one in College Station, or the 60 unit that is it's a mile away from Texas A&M. It's a combination of some student housing. It's actually an A-class property, and also in an opportunity zone, which is, I know, sounds kind of strange because that doesn't usually, those two don't go together, but it just happen to fall in that area that's an opportunity zone. But it is an A-class, um, built in 2011, and we house some students there. They're mostly the grad students that are in there, though. So it's been a pretty smooth running property.
Wow. My next question is, do you sleep?
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
it's been, I know. I do
like,
sleep. I
wow.
sleep very well, actually, but yeah, it's a lot of work during the day, and it's interesting on my advertising business, which I also still have that business, and that kind of runs, it pretty much runs on its own, but I'm working way harder in the multifamily than I had on the advertising business. But it's fun. It's in my blood, so I definitely love it, and I love the communication, the community for multifamily, and the partnerships, and the relationships that you gain. It's a tremendous amount of partners that I've gained over all these different properties and interactions with them.
Absolutely. And for me, like the first deal that my mother and I first got on is in Tyler, Texas, and we're just learning tons of it. I mean, just from that first deal, it was able to get us into the next one and now taking on a bunch of other properties and prospects as well. Because, just from learning hands-on, I mean, I say this all the time. You can go through any coaching program you'd like, you can watch as much YouTube, but when you're in real estate, it's a whole different animal. There's so much still to learn. It's like I know nothing. Like what? And the best way to learn real estate is to do real estate. And that's exactly what you were doing with those deals. And not only that, first managing your first property. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, there's so much with real estate. It's like its own living, breathing thing where it'll teach you. And you go, I don't remember learning this. I don't remember reading this. But that's the beauty of it, at least in my eyes, though. But yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that can happen, and it just different regions around the country, different weather conditions, different
Oh yeah.
class of properties, and whether they're close to college towns or tourist towns, or working force housing, all kinds.
Absolutely. Like, I'll give you an example. The Tulsa asset that we have. I mean, I didn't know much about Tulsa, but the team did because you got some of their boots on the ground. You have some that are actually formerly lived there for most of their lives. So we were chatting about it, and they had like, this insurance policy in place, and they're like, well, if strong winds or hail or if a tornado comes by and rips half of our siding off, that's great. And I'm like, what do you mean that's great? I'm like, that's not good at all. And he's like, well, hold on, let me explain. And he explained it where, when that's torn off, the insurance policy that we have, they can pay for it. So it's like, wait, we just got a new siding for free thanks to Mother Nature and the insurance policy that we have. And he's like, pretty much. And I'm like, that just sounds so wrong, but it makes sense. Like you would think that's so expensive and so detrimental, but it's these little nuances that you learn inside the business. Like, the correct insurance policy, like, looking at tax abatements and stuff like that. I mean, once you start to really dig in, it's like, oh, well, okay. Are we wishing for a hailstorm to get a new roof or something so we can bump the appreciation? Like what? But but yeah, that's at least from what I've seen. But the next thing I want to dive into is like where kind of like we were talking about the markets right now. There's so much buzz happening with the syndication market, loans that are coming due, distressed properties that are coming for, coming to market. I was talking with a former another sponsor actually, and he said there's tons of distressed properties that are coming to market. So I want to hear from your perspective. What are you seeing right now with, multifamily, like, looking for deals or raising capital, whatever it may be? I guess for the rest of this year, bleeding into 2027, how do you think the multifamily market's going to handle? Do you think it's going to be on an upward trend? Is it kind of going to flatline a little bit? What are you seeing from your boots on the ground perspective in the industry?
Yeah, I see it as there's a lot of terrific opportunities out there on good, cash flowing assets. They're not easy to find. I get calls all the time, and I get on with students or people that are just looking for the first property, and everybody's struggling to find. Oh, it's so hard to find and everything, and it really is. There's no magic there, but the key really is to stay engaged with your contacts and let them clearly know, be transparent of what it is that you're looking for. Uh, there are there are some stress deals out there. I believe that there's a lot more that are probably going to be coming down the road. That doesn't mean that the sky's falling. It doesn't mean that, it's, going to be a horrible time. Those distressed assets can be a big moneymaker, but they're not an easy lift, right? They're usually come with a lot of deferred maintenance. They come with a lot of maybe poor tenant base, maybe low occupancy, a lot of other problems that you got to jump in. So it does take experience, it takes money, and takes time and patience, to get through those. Um, so it's not for everybody. On the other hand, there's a lot of assets that are very well run and have good occupancy, and deferred maintenance has been taken care of, and they can be picked up at a lesser price today than they would have just a couple of years ago, usually. And if you can get into it and cash flow now, without getting into any real too lofty projections and being too aggressive in rent bumps and oh I'm gonna put this much in and I'm gonna get this much more rent. I mean you have a little bit of that, but rents have been flat pretty much across the board for quite a while now, at least a
Oh yeah,
couple of
across
years.
several markets.
Yeah, most markets, honestly. I mean, most markets. And so as long as you're cash flowing today, I think you'll be good because I think the outlook for the future is very positive. And so you just got to make sure you get into it, you buy right, you make your money on the buy, right? So if you get it into it at the right price and you can stabilize, keep it stabilized, cash flow, even if it's a small cash flow, and you just wait for the timing to come back around, it will for sure, where rents will go up, values will go up, interest rates come down, hopefully, but even if not, they can still be very profitable properties. People need a place to live, no question about it.
And that's the key point there. I preach about cash flow all the time, cash flowing day one. Um, you know, for me, I want to say, several months ago, a cash flow day one wasn't exactly as important. I'd like solid cash flow, but now that I'm looking at more of the market fundamentals and listening to other investors talk, such as yourself, I'm like, all right, cash flow day one is probably the new thing. And now that I'm looking at some of the deals that we have coming across our desk, that's the biggest thing is cash flow right now because you can have solid cash flow. The question is your equity going to survive? Like that's the key point. And if you have cash flow, I mean, there you go. That's pretty much the biggest thing there because it's that quarterly pay or however you model distributions. But that's it. Cash flow is king. It's kind of like, this phrase cash is king. But for us right now, cash flow is king because you want that
Yeah.
property profiting on a conservative basis. I've seen a lot of people, students included, where they will send over a deal and these projections are way out in left field. I'm like, is this conservative? No, this is the upside. I don't want to hear about the upside. I want to hear about the downside. Because
Right.
if this thing works with when downside hits, like for example, if the market decides to take a swing, if the central banks decide to have a fit, or the Fed chair goes nuts, like if everything starts to go south, but this property's still in the black, then all right, I'll take a look at it. And that's the biggest thing. I'm sure you're looking at the same thing, conservative numbers, not crazy projections. Like if this thing still works with how many holes we could poke in it, then it could be a viable deal. But that's my 2 cents worth. But due to inflation, it's probably 50 cents. So, but yeah,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You get so many new, especially the new students or that are looking at these properties and they're buying this property from somebody who's owned this thing for 10 or 20 years, right?
yeah,
And or even just five, but they all of a sudden have these projections where they're going to go in and do all these things that the last owner didn't do, and they're going to run it so much better, and they're going to, trim costs, and they're going to increase rents, and they're going to add this fee and add that fee, and all this, covered parking and
we wish it was that easy.
dog pet sitting or whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
just, the reality is that, hey, if you can do it, good luck. But I certainly wouldn't bank, my money on it. Certainly not other people's money on it.
No,
And you have to look at what it is right now today. Like, is it cash flowing today the way it is? Because that's what you're buying. You're buying it not of what it could be. You're buying it what it is today. And that's what you're gonna deal with for until you can start improving all these different areas and increasing the NOI.
absolutely. Because, if you take on a property that's already profiting, it's doing well, the management's a little tired, the property's tired. But if, numerically, if it works, then there you go. You don't want to take something that's not numerically working. Like, for example, if your DSCR is below one, walk away because that's just not good. There
Yeah.
was somebody that was telling me, yeah, there was a property that came for a listing that was like a DSCR below zero point 0.5. And I'm like, that's deplorable. I'm like, run,
Yeah.
sprint,
Run.
like no, go, like go as far away as you can. But these are things that people talk about and that they see. Of course, it's
Yeah,
unfortunate, but that's the thing. Like you said, if you take on this property, does it work right now? And then you can worry about the NOI and cutting down expenses and whatever. I mean, once you start to get the numbers right, the numbers cleaned up, then you can start doing your value add slowly. But
that's
if
right.
the property makes sense right off the bat, that's the question. But
Yeah, it's
anyway,
like any other business too. Like if you're buying,
yeah,
you're
you're
buying a
buying a
dry
business.
cleaners, or you're buying a high vac maintenance company, or you're buying a restaurant. You're not basing your price, your buy price on what it could be 5 or 10 years down the road. You're buying on what it does right now. Like how much cash does that business make? And then it's a multiplier of that is what is the correct price to pay for that, right? If you can
Right.
increase and do a better job down the road over time, then that's great. But that's your benefit and your profit, not the sellers, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that get confused on like, oh yeah, I like to look at this price per door. Well, that's all great and talking, but what it is, you take the actual income that the property's making entirely, and then you have that factor. I believe it's 10, and then you see like, what's your value? What's the property value? Because multifamily is valued off by how much it's making. I think it's net operating income, and then you multiply it by 10. Like if the property's not producing, then you multiply the number, you see the price is way lower than it should, that should say something. So you're right. It's like you're buying it what it is today, not what it could be. It's just what today. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to buy it, and then all of a sudden overnight it's going to become this beautiful asset. It's just not going to happen. It's just not. No.
Right.
But
Exactly.
anyways, to wrap up our episode because we're just coming up to our time, Mike. For anybody that's looking to get into multifamily, whether they want to start out, what do you think is the best piece of advice you could leave them if they're looking to multifamily right now?
Buy right is probably the, number one for sure. Find good partners. If you're going to large, you for sure want a good team around you. That's really important. Nobody does this by themselves, right? And on the large multifamily, and the teamwork makes the dream work, right? So make sure you get good connections, connect well with people that you trust and you like, and you do, you that have experience because you're going to need that when it comes down to it. Problems. It's not a question of like, you buy a property. It's not a question of if a problem will happen. It's just when. There will be problems, guaranteed, on every single property. There are problems. So it's how you pivot. It's how you solve those problems, and do it quickly at a lower cost makes a huge difference. And experience for sure helps that dramatically.
Absolutely. And follow-up questions. Speaking of connections, how can people connect with you and learn about the projects and also follow you on social media to learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my website is GrowCap Today, growcaptoday.com. I'm also all over LinkedIn, most all social media at Michael Desrosiers or Mike Desrosiers, and they can reach out to me. You can schedule a Zoom call. I always love getting on Zoom calls with individuals that I whether I meet them at trade events or these industry events or meet them through different social medias. I always suggest getting on a Zoom call because it's always great to do a one-on-one. You kind of get an idea of where they're at in their journey and what they need, and I kind of explain a little bit about where I'm at and think what I can provide. I'm a KP. I'm a sponsor. I'm loan guarantor. I can do all of those with the right properties and the right people. So I'm always out for engaging and making new contacts.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with Mike one on one, please check this podcast and also video link description below. You can connect with him on LinkedIn and also follow him on his website as well. And you can also tune into our various channels, whether it's Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, or YouTube, in the link below. And please give us a follow and please repost this to your channels so you can learn more and so that other people can learn more. And to my audience out there, build yourself better and bigger every day. Live better, live bigger. Always move forward. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom, my friend. I know I got a lot of value, so it's probably guaranteed that my guests, or excuse me, my not my guests, but my audience has gotten a lot of value. So thank you so much, my friend, for coming on.
Awesome, Michael. Thank you.
Of course.